we'll come to you, and then just put your mic on in your camera, and we'll entertain your question. You can also just put questions in the chat box if you don't want to do that, and then we can answer those at a later date. We'll also provide you with a copy of the slides. Once we're done with this, we'll go ahead and send them out to everybody once we're done. So if we can go to the first slide here, we'll just kind of look at our agenda, what we're going to cover today. Colonel Barbina is going to kind of basically talk about our team, what the Army's doing here in New England, what things that we can offer you. I'll talk to March to Success. I know it's M2S, that's kind of military code there, but that's a great test prep program. I'll talk some about that. We'll have a soldier testimony by one of our own soldiers and how education has actually benefited him in his career. We'll also look at the ASVAB CEP, that's the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. And Jennifer Stillman, our Portland ESS, is going to talk about that. STAR program is Students Taking an Active Role. That's a program that we offer to our high school students. It's kind of a ROTC light, and Colonel Barbina will discuss some of that. I'll cover down on the Army Educator Tour. That's a program that I run annually, provided we don't have COVID, but hopefully we're going to pick up on that program in the coming years. It's a very worthwhile program, and a lot of our educators in the region get a great benefit from that program. And then lastly, you know, what things you can do for us, and we'll have some question and answers following that. So to get us started, I'm going to turn it over to Colonel Anthony Barbina. He's the battalion commander for the New England Recruiting Battalion, and I'll turn over to you, sir.
Hey, thanks, Dave. Hey, just for everybody that's on today, my name is Colonel Anthony Barbina. I'm the battalion commander or the regional commander for recruiting inside of the New England region. So a little bit of the reason why we're doing the lunch and learn today is I went to a private school when I was younger. I then transitioned to homeschool for a short period of time. And then I went to a public high school, and I did not know anything about the military until I got to high school. And I had an assistant football coach who was actually a recruiter. And one day, as I was kind of looking through my career options, he brought it up to me and told me a little bit about the military, helped me apply to West Point. I went to West Point and I did baseball and skydiving there. As you all heard earlier, I graduated in class of '99. So I graduated a few years ago. And after 20 years of doing this, I wouldn't be here in front of you today if it wasn't for the United States Army. And just for some people who, when I was younger in private school, in homeschool, and in high school, kind of reaching out to me and telling me about a little bit about the military, let me make my own decision. So the lunch and learn today is talking about putting some of the resources in the hands of educators across the New England area, and just letting you know that we have, as you can see on this slide in front of you, I have 300 recruiting NCOs in the New England region at stations that are probably only about 15 to 20 miles at the farthest point from where you live. And my recruiting NCOs, we've got the points of contact for Maine, for New Hampshire, for my 3 companies in Massachusetts, and for Rhode Island. And if you look at this slide, when we give you the notes, if you have questions, my team is on here today. They're ready to listen. They're ready to talk to you, and they're ready to reach out to your school. Because that is one of the things that we are supposed to do, is we're supposed to educate our young men and women inside of the schools about just opportunities that are out there. For you in the educator side, we'll go to the next slide. So as I mentioned, kind of my own personal Army story, I think the misconception that people have in the region is that every single job in the Army is about fighting in combat. And we have 150 military occupational specialties that are doing a variety of things. We run small cities. Our bases like Fort Bragg, North Carolina, Fort Hood, Texas, and others like that, we run small cities. So out of our 150 military occupational specialties, we have to feed ourselves. We have to repair our facilities. We have to do cyber operations. We have to do technical services. We fix our own vehicles. We have fleets of hundreds of thousands of vehicles across the military, ranging from tanks to airplanes to helicopters to unmanned aerial vehicles and everything in between. We are the second largest employer in the United States, right behind Walmart. The United States Army is the second largest employer in the United States. And kind of like I said in my own personal Army story, I've been very fortunate to be going through the Army for 20 years after my high school experience and time at West Point. And it's given me a lot of education, a lot of technical skills, training and certifications, and other things that any time when I'd want to get out, I'd be able to transfer over to whatever job I'd want to do in the civilian sector. So I think that as people in New England, my wife is from Scarborough, Maine, up by Portland. And so that is one reason why I'm here, is because I have a local family. And I know from my family how little information is available because we don't have any major military bases up here. So if there are concerns like in homeschooling, or if there are high schools or other sports programs where you need to gain information or your kids want to know about what the Army has to offer, this is the big picture about who your Army is. So we'll go to the next slide. You know, I talked a little bit about the occupational specialties, the 150 jobs that are out there. But the great thing about the 150 jobs is, you know, we can teach hard skills, we can teach soft skills, we can teach people some things that will pay them forward for the rest of their lives. You know, many of the people who get out after 4 years, they have veterans preference, they have veterans benefits, they have set up for the they have set up for the Montgomery GI Bill. They're able to go into college at the military's expense, and they have just a lot of opportunities for them. Like a lot of my truck drivers get commercial driver's license, CDL equivalencies. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Missouri. You know, we have a lot of culinary training that our cooks go through. There are so many things that are transferable over in terms of career readiness when you get out of the military that just can take you right into the civilian sector. It's a tremendous amount of opportunity, I think, today on the career readiness, on the benefits, and on the education side. And if any of the guidance counselors that are out there and any school educators, if you want to have a similar brief given by my recruiting NCOs, they are ready to come give that to you as guidance counselors or principals. They can reach out and talk to your educators inside of your schools, like for the homeschooling agencies. Like if you have a homeschooler group and you want us to do a similar lunch and learn like we're doing today for you inside of your school district or inside of your homeschooler education program, we are ready to talk about that and talk about the things that we can bring to bear in support of your educators. So with that said, that's kind of the big picture. And I want to give you a personal testimony of one of my soldiers. Staff Sergeant Sizemore, Derek Sizemore, is going to give a little bit of his own personal experience with the military and kind of bring it to home for you here today. So Sergeant Sizemore, if you could, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Derek Sizemore. Really happy to have the opportunity to talk to you today. I come from a family of educators. My dad is an administrator, or he just retired. And my mom is a high needs education teacher. So education is pretty near and dear to my heart. I want to tell you a little bit about me. So I grew up in a small town in Virginia where I was on very much so not a military path. I was definitely into computers. I was really into video games back when we had to bring our desktops to our homes and then run the cables to set up our own local networks. It was a few years ago. I did community college for a couple of years. College was always the path that I was set on. And then I ended up spending a couple of years working in the corporate world in New York City as their director of revenue management. I found it really unsatisfying. You know, I wasn't fulfilled. I didn't feel like it was what my path needed to be. So I decided that I needed to make a change. I looked into the opportunities within the Army and I found out that they had IT specialists. So in 2011, I joined the United States Army at 25 years old, and I've had the opportunity to live in places like Hawaii, Alaska, South Korea, and work in data centers all over. During that time, I've earned a couple of civilian certifications. I finished my undergraduate in information technology, specializing in networking. And then I've gone on and I'm 2 classes away from finishing my Master's of Business Administration. This fall, I will start at Northeastern University, earning my Master's of Public Administration, and I have paid for $0 of my education. It is all, I've used the tuition assistance from the Army. This fall, I'll use my GI Bill to earn my second Master's. I have aspirations to earn my PhD, and I know that the Army will help afford me that opportunity. So thank you for your time.
Hey, thanks, Sergeant Sizemore. So just, you know, we have other NCOs across my unit who, if you need them to talk about the opportunities, the Army officer to talk specifically to individuals in your schools who are interested in career service, just let us know. But thanks, Sergeant Sizemore. So next up is going to be Mr. O'Neill, who started everything off. He is our education specialist. He runs programs and he runs school interface throughout the New England region. So Dave O'Neill, back over to you.
Thank you, sir. So the program that I'd like to talk to you today about is called March to Success. And just a little bit of background about the program. It started just after 9/11. There was a big surge in enlistments. The Army was growing. And one of the problems or issues that we had was we had a lot of people interested in the military, and they qualified in all regards, but the only thing, they couldn't pass the ASVAB. And one of the things that we can't do as recruiters, we cannot tutor our applicants in order to pass the test. So we found ourselves in a position, what are we going to do? The Army as a whole found themselves in a position, what are we going to do? How can we get these people, these applicants qualified for service? So what the Army did is they went out and they partnered with Peterson's, which is a test prep, well known in the education community, and they developed this program that offers all kinds of tools for test preparation. And the great thing about this, it's free. Free for anybody, for students, parents, anybody who just logs on. All you have to have is internet access, and you can log on to this program. So it's a great investment that the Army has made, and it's helped out tremendous, not only with applicants trying to pass the ASVAB, but it also helps with the ACT and SAT preparation. So we found it to be a great asset for us. So looking at the slide here, you can see that we have, like I said, it's for students, for educators. We have a lot of college prep built into this program. One of the unique things about the program is, as an educator, you can set up an ACT test prep, and you can then create a whole class and monitor those students that are working with you. So you can monitor what modules they've taken, what their scores have been, which is really, really a nice application. And another thing too, Peterson, like I said, Peterson's developed this. If you went to the Peterson website, you can look at downloading some of their products, and you would pay over $100 for just a small piece of what March to Success has to offer. So it's great value. It's kind of a lot of my colleagues will tell you that it's our gift to education. So having said that, let's go to the next slide, please. And just a quick snapshot of what the program looks like. What's included with it. The first thing that anybody does when they log onto the system, they're going to have to take an assessment test. And this is a computer adaptive type test. So basically, it's going to start your program at the level at which you're at. So it's not the same for it's not a one shoe size fits all. So it's pretty well designed for your needs, and it's going to start all your learning from that point on. We've monitored, or we've updated the program over the years, looking at STEM. STEM technology is big, so we have a few units or modules that are dedicated just for that. The college preparation, as I mentioned earlier, there's 7 full-length SAT, ACT tests that are on this, and they're all timed and graded events, which is quite unique. We also have flashcards that come with that. And the last thing is, with additional material that we have is we've developed this over the past couple of years. We've included the MCAT and the DAT. The MCAT is the medical certification testing for medical school, and then those going on to dental school, we've included the DAT for them as well. So some great information there. And this is great for schools, because I know a lot of schools really struggle with finances and resources. And like I said before, this is a free resource that you can hopefully put onto your school website for students to use. I always encourage that when I meet with school counselors, put this on there. It can greatly help your students, and it's free. There's no cost. The only couple things that I'll tell you that, you have to be 13 or older to use it. So that's one qualifier there. And we also get a lot of questions about, well, hey, this is an Army product, so there's got to be a catch, right? Well, there's no catch. We do not collect any information or any kind of PII from our students that log on to this platform. The only thing that we will check or we track is if someone logs on, we just track what zip code they came from, and that's it. We're just trying to get an idea of who's using the product across the country, and that's the only thing that we track with this program. And the last thing I would say, the best way to understand the program is to log on. It's www.march2success.com. There's a great infographic real quick. It gives you a great overview of the whole program. So just click on that, watch it, get a good appreciation to what it offers. And you'll see that there's quite a bit of information and resources embedded into this program.
Yeah, and this is Colonel Barbina again. I think educators, if March Success is something that you're curious about, our station commanders, our guys and gals in your region can give you some more information on it. Governor Baker talked about it quite a bit. So did Mayor Walsh inside of Massachusetts, because it was very good for preparatory work on SAT and ACT. The modules in there, what we see is when people go through March Success and they go through and do it, they improve on vocabulary and they improve on mathematical skills. So that's kind of the sweet spot for March Success. And it's about getting kind of good reps and sets underneath of their belt. And we could, Bill's nodding his head because, he understands from a hockey perspective, this is about repetition. It's about kind of getting some good cuts before you go in there in the actual main event. Kids are getting less chances to take the SAT and SAT now. They're getting, with COVID restricting our ability to even do ASVABs in schools. This is a good effort. And if somebody is looking to enlist in the military and they do not pass the score, I know in Brockton High School, we do have some low ASVAB scores initially. When young men and women go through this March Success program, they do improve. If they're intending to join into the military, this program helps them to do better on the ASVAB. And so with that said, I'd like to turn it over to Miss Jennifer Stillman. Jennifer is going to talk to you a little bit today about the ASVAB and the Career Exploration Program.
Thank you, Colonel. Good morning, everybody. So glad to be here with you. As the Colonel said, my name is Jennifer Stillman. I am the program manager for the ASVAB Career Exploration Program in the state of Maine and the 4 eastern counties of New Hampshire. We cover about 175 high schools, and we also work with non-traditional schooling sources, just like the homeschoolers, Job Corps, and private schools. The big thing about ASVAB that I really want to impress upon everybody today is when you think of ASVAB, you typically think of military service. And albeit that is true, and the Department of Defense does pay for our program, the grand majority of people who participate in the ASVAB in the high schools or private schools actually never join the military, believe it or not. We are not a recruiting source. So unlike my partners here today who are coming to you from the Army, we are civilians, and we go into the school with one intent, and that is to get young people in front of career exploration material that makes sense for them. So when you think of ASVAB, I want you to also think about all of the opportunities that these young people have out in the world of work, whether that be military, civilian, schooling, that type of thing. So if you guys could go to my next slide for me, that would be great. It's a 2-part program. We actually have an assessment that I think most people think of when they think of the ASVAB. It's an 8-part battery for most students. If they take it online through the computer adaptive test, that's a 9-section test. But because it's online, it's adaptable, and it usually goes quicker than the paper and pencil test. But that's actually not the fun part. That's the part that everybody kind of like, oh, I don't want to take a test, right? Who wants to take a test? We have a career exploration workshop that we come back within a couple of weeks and to deliver to those students. I do most of the ones up here in our region, but I've also worked with about, I would say 30 recruiters from different branches that are also trained to deliver that. And Mr. O'Neill is one of those folks that I work with out in the field, and he's been doing a number of those workshops with me over the years. And the tools that we give these young people during that workshop are unbelievable. One of those tools is March to Success. So we highly recommend that. Everything that you just heard about March to Success, I 100% endorse, and they're a great partner in education for anybody, regardless of what their needs are. But our program, as I said, is a two-part program, and it's that career exploration follow-up that we have that is really different than other things on the market. Just like March to Success, everything with the ASVAB Career Exploration Program is 100% free. It's free to the schools, it's free to students. It's just an unbelievable resource that the Department of Defense has made available to people. And I just want to make sure that everybody understands 15 years and up is our age bracket. You can take the ASVAB through the schools or through the Student Exploration Program through to age 24. So this is not something that's made available for older adults, but certainly adolescents 15 and up, and that usually translates to about the 10th grade curriculum up to age 24. So if you could go to my next slide. I just want to point out some of the features of our website. When we do a workshop with young people, one of the first things I, of course, want to know is how did I do on the ASVAB, regardless of whether they intend on joining the military or not. But we really focus on taking a step back and looking at more than just their skills. Because let's face it, we all know, having been around the sun a few times, that it doesn't matter how much skill you have in something if you don't fundamentally feel connected with it, if you don't fundamentally feel like that particular career field is a good fit for your personality. So a big focus during that workshop is going to be trying to identify what areas of the world of work make the most sense for them based on how they interact with that world around them. Are they a people person? Are they a hands-on, tools-oriented person? So we're going to talk about interests first, and we really feel like that's the big foundation for what's the most important part of their job readiness. Then we're going to talk about their scores, and we're going to keep in mind that their ASVAB scores are not necessarily a true reflection of the entirety of their academic experience. It's one day in the history of their life. We actually don't recommend that most students prepare for that test by studying, at least for the first iteration. If they choose to use the ASVAB scores to go into military service, we would then, of course, recommend that if they need to test again, they go ahead and they use resources like March to Success in order to get their scores up. But most students, we just want them to come in, do as well as they can, get a good night's sleep, drink some water ahead of time, make sure they have a breakfast if that's something they normally do, and just give it their best. There's sections on the ASVAB that they may not have familiarity with, maybe automotives, electronics, but that's no matter. We don't care. We just want them to come in, and it's a snapshot of what they have to offer. When we do our debrief with them during the workshop, they're going to very quickly be able to hone in on those areas that they do have the most skill on. And what I tell them is, hey, listen, if you don't have a skill right now, the ASVAB does not predict how well you might learn that skill in the future. It truly is a snapshot of what you showed us on test day you can handle in the way of skill. It will put them in a spectrum comparing them to their age level peers. So if they're 16, they're going to be scored against other 16-year-olds in their grade level. If they're 21, they're going to be scored against people of that age. So they never get penalized for being scored or compared against people who are younger or older than them. But it gives them a relative look at how they're going to stack up in those skill areas, so that if they do want to pursue a particular career field moving forward, they now know where their skills are and where they need to be. The best part of our workshop, guys, is that we have this thing called the OccuFind, and there's a catalog of 1,110 jobs that we will have those students sit in front of during our workshop. Now that they've gotten their interest codes, they've gotten their skills, they can really hone in on those careers that make the most sense for them. No more guessing, no more worrying about what my parents think I should do, or what my coach says I should do, or what my friends are telling me on social media. Really based on true fact, based on who they are and what they bring, they can now look through those jobs. And you'll see a little bit of a screenshot. I know it's hard to see on the right side of the page there, but that's a sample of one of our pages. And it's going to tell them what kinds of tasks they can expect to do in that career field, what kind of education they need. is it a 2-year degree? Is it a PhD? They're going to find out what kind of licenses, certification, credentialing they need. Is there a military equivalent? So for the young people who are interested in joining the military, they're going to find out if any of those military jobs are equivalent to those civilian partners. And then they can launch into a website called Careers in the Military that allows them to go step by step into each of the services, find out what kind of training they need, what kind of environment they're going to be in, what the career progression is, and they can actually link straight to a recruiter right from that page. Best of all, and one of my favorite parts of the program is they're going to be able to see how much money they can make, not only in this local area, but in any local area around the country. They can find out by city or county what the cost of living is in that area. So it truly is a remarkable program. Again, it's 2 parts. So you've got the assessment that comes first. It takes about 2.5 to 3 hours. And then you have the career workshop, which we try to accomplish in an hour within a couple of weeks of the student sitting for the assessment. We don't want them waiting a really long time for those scores. If they're a sophomore, their scores are not eligible for enlistment. So that's just an important distinction to make. We welcome sophomores to participate, but they will have to take the test again as a junior or older. Junior and older scores, if allowed to be released to the military, and that's always up to the school and or the parents, those scores are valid for 2 years. So from the date that they test until the 2-year anniversary, that test date, those scores can be used for enlistment if they choose to use them and if they're qualifiable. If a person takes the ASVAB again, their new scores always replace the old scores. So if you have a young person who's looking to take the ASVAB, they don't accomplish the score that they need to join the service of their choice or get the job of their choice, and they choose to go back and do that study via March to Success or other programs, then they can go ahead and do that, but they will have to take into account the fact that those new scores are always the only ones they can use moving forward. So that's our program in a nutshell. I would highly encourage you to visit our website, which is on these slides, asvabprogram.com. If you use the access code PARENT, P-A-R-E-N-T, you can get in there and look at what all of the tools and the resources look like. And that's what we're all about. We're trying to help these young people build their toolkit. So if we can be of any assistance, please contact me. I've put my information in the chat window. So feel free to copy down that information, and we'd love to hear from you. We're very keen on getting new energy into our program, and COVID has been hard for everybody and we've kind of lost touch with folks. So if there's anything we can do for you, please let us know. And with that, I will turn it back over to Colonel Barbina.
Hey, thank you, Jennifer. And for everybody that's listening in today, as we go into the question and answer period, Jennifer can answer questions. I know many schools are still trying to coordinate their ASVAB tests for their school. Because of COVID, many have been canceled throughout the year, but Jennifer is the one who can do those coordinations and make those happen. Because really, as she mentioned, it's a 2-step program. Conducting the ASVAB in your school or locally, regionally, a lot of VOTEC and STEM networks will coordinate an ASVAB, and then people will come to one central location to execute it. And then the second part is this career exploration program she talked about. The non-commissioned officers we have trained inside of my battalion, they are trained to help your students. They are not trained to recruit them into the United States Army. Kind of like my own personal story, a lot of times it's about helping these kids make the right decisions for their long-term life. And so our men and women are trained to help them go through the career exploration program and learn a little bit more about themselves. So 2 great programs. Jennifer, it was great that you rolled that up. I would like to mention that New Hampshire, the state of New Hampshire, does count the ASVAB as a college equivalency preparation. Just to give you, for high schools, the additional indicator for student success is called the Career and College Readiness Indicator, or the CCR. As you all know, this is a post-secondary readiness, and is one of the 11 criteria scoring at least level 3 on the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. New Hampshire has already passed that in the state. Rhode Island is working on it right now, and Massachusetts has been discussing it quite a bit. We're talking with the Massachusetts leadership, and Maine is also another indicator there, as people are trying to look at how are we assessing post-secondary school education readiness. The ASVAB has been one of those tests for many, many years that kind of helps you assess it. Okay. Jennifer, thank you very much. We're going to go to the next slide. So everybody has heard of JROTC. JROTC is a very big program across our region. So I didn't put a slide in here today about JROTC because many of you know what that is. We have ROTC, or Senior Reserve Officer Training Corps, at many of our major colleges like MIT, Northeastern, University of Maine, University of New Hampshire, University of Rhode Island, Providence College. Those ROTC programs have been established and been around for 30 plus years. They also support JROTC programs, Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps programs, at many of the biggest high schools inside of this region. Brockton High School, I could list a bunch of high schools that support JROTC programs. Where JROTC programs do not exist inside of a school, because there's a certain limit on the number of JROTC programs that can be out there. It takes a very long time to create a new JROTC program. So many schools that have said they wanted to do some type of career enhancement, leadership development, and kind of broadening, maybe physically broadening for their school, we have offered up this program called STAR, Students Taking Active Roles. And so what I would just tell you is, inside of schools that do not have a JROTC, inside of schools that may not have maybe additional money to get after additional curriculum, I've offered up a lot of my recruiting NCOs to actually help be assistant coaches, to help run this Students Taking Active Role program. We can talk about leadership. We can talk about discipline. We talk a lot about problem solving. We've even gotten into some of these STAR modules and some of the career development things that we're doing. We've talked about budgeting and finance, because my recruiting NCOs, we've taken them through several modules where they can help these young men and women kind of talk about and develop their future. We also do a lot of physical fitness events. We'll do competitions. We'll do obstacle courses. We'll do a lot of things inside of this Students Taking Active Role program, the STAR program, to just help complement your athletic programs and to help complement a whole of life physical fitness attitude that's going to help these young men and women be productive members of society. So this STAR program, I just put it out there because my recruiting NCOs are ready to do this at any high school, at any homeschool program, and they're ready to tie into you and help provide this mentorship and education for your kids. Again, kind of like the March Success and the ASVAB, this is about us being members of the service and giving back to your high schools and giving back to your STEM and VOTEC networks and your homeschool programs. I think this is a great opportunity for us to help you and to mentor these young men and women. Like I said, not, a small portion of these young men and women may decide to join the service. That is not necessarily my intent. Ours is to be a productive part of educating kids in the New England region. So the STAR program, if you're interested in it, it is something my NCOs, my non-commissioned officers and officers are ready to assist for any school in the region for New England. So feel free to reach out. We'll go back to the last slide that we have to cover today, and it is the educator's tour. So this is about jumping out of airplanes and meeting people at Natick Labs and Hanscom Air Force Base. And I'm going to turn it back over to Dave O'Neill.
All right, thank you, sir. This is a great program, and I'll tell you what, we've not been able to do this for the last few years, just COVID, obviously. And sometimes it's money, because these take a lot of money. It takes a lot of money to put one of these things on. But like I said, I conduct one of these annually, and we try to get out to a major installation, for instance, Fort Bragg, Fort Benning, or Fort Jackson. And it's an opportunity to bring educators and kind of showcase what the Army's all about. As Colonel mentioned earlier, in New England, there's very little we're the Army presence in New England. The recruiters that are in New England, that's the Army. And that's the only Army that you see. There's not a major installation that you can, you drive by and you see a lot of soldiers. So getting out and showing you what a real Army installation looked like is a great benefit, because then you can see, what do soldiers do? What do they eat? How do they, what are they doing in training? What are their living conditions like? You can put all those myths to rest. So when you come back to your school, you can then share that information with your students and say, you know what, I've been to basic training, or I've jumped out of a plane. As you can see here in the slide, we have our own, the Golden Knights. That's an asset of the recruiting command. So when we do an educator tour, if you want to jump out of a plane with somebody, go for it. We'll do it. And it's it's a lifetime experience. But we do a lot of hands-on training. I mean, you'd be surprised, our military installations have the most technical equipment in education centers as well. So when these educators come back, they're just blown away with all the stuff that we have to offer. And they wouldn't know that, because the Army that they see is the Army they see on TV. And that's not always in a good light. So we try to show them the great things that we're doing, what our soldiers are training on. And we like to have a lot of hands-on training for you. So I always put this message out at, every year when we're going to plan one of these events. I try to get as many people. We can take about 30 people because we're limited with funding. It's usually like a busload of folks. And we'll pay for it. It's a 3-day tour. So we'll travel one day, spend 3 days on the ground at the installation, and then travel back on the 4th day. And believe me, it's a time of a life. So I look forward to doing it when we can. And like I said, when the next one's being planned, we'll send that information out to you. And hopefully that you can participate in that event. With that, we'll go to our last slide and kind of just wrap it up.
And if I could just jump in there for a second, just so that you educators are aware, the Natick Labs is creating a virtual educators tour. They are working on it right now to give kind of a module where if you are curious what people do here locally for the Army, at Natick Labs alone, which is near Hanscom Air Force Base, they make the DoD's food. They create a lot of the cold weather gear. They create the facilities, like they make modular facilities that we live in. Like I lived in a box that they made for me for a whole year. It was good. It was awesome. And it was made out of Natick Labs, and they have a bunch of systems like the Natick Force Providers, where I actually took them to Africa when I went to Liberia and did the Ebola treatment units. I used Natick products in Africa as we did that mission in 2014. So just a small world. And we are going to work on a local educators tour that's virtual, so you can see a little bit about Natick Labs. And then we will be building a local tour of a half day in the Natick Labs area to kind of facilitate some education for educators around this region. And then the big one is the 3-day, pretty neat, getting to see a major Army installation. So if you're interested in any of those tours, let Mr. O'Neill know, and we'll start building this thing once COVID clears and get folks around so they can see a little bit more about the Army itself. And with that said, the Army Cyber Institute is on here today. And our cyber team, if you guys have anything that you'd like to let everybody that's on the net know today, I'd like to turn the mic over to you. I'd like to thank you for your participation. And go ahead, gentlemen.
Good afternoon. So I'm Jeremiah Pittman. I'm a warrant officer, so that puts me squarely between sergeants and real officers. So I'm in this unique little band. And then Kent Mitsuoka, both of us are in the Army Cyber Institute here at West Point. Thank you, sir, for allowing us to have this opportunity. And what we do is we do cyber research for the Army. Not trying to get too complicated with it. The gist of it is our mission is to look at cyber problems that the Army has and try to find research and do research to try to figure out solutions for that by working with civilian educator partners, working with the academy, working with other universities and the military units. My background, I was a homeschool kid, and I'm a product of the state of Washington education system. And so I would bounce back and forth between homeschool and public education. And then Washington has a program at the end of your high school. You can do the last 2 years of your high school in the community college. I did that and then joined the military shortly thereafter. And then similar to the sergeant that briefed earlier, once I got into the military, I used a combination of TA funding and this coming out of pocket only for books, and to get a undergrad in history through Troy University. And then I'm halfway through my graduate degree with Liberty University out of Lynchburg, Virginia for business management. So from the education side of it, I love the Army. It has paid for everything and I haven't had to spend a dime on it. And as a parent, I'm a parent of 6 kids. I got 2 in high school, 2 in middle school, and 2 in elementary school. And so, hey, I love the resources, especially in this place, because this place supports families. So it's a good opportunity. Sir.
I'm Captain Victor Mitsuoka. I'm a logistician. So my background is a little bit similar to Chief. So I wasn't the most academically inclined individual. I actually had 3 attempts to try to get my undergraduate degree. So I went to Virginia Tech, Hawaii Pacific University, and University of Southern California. So the second attempt, I actually got my undergraduate degree in computer science. I did it in about 2.5 years. But the third attempt, I wasn't very successful. It actually took me 2 years, but I didn't complete it. It was a bachelor's in electrical engineering. So I love the Army because it funded my entire education. So going back to what I mentioned earlier, I incurred a scholarship debt through the Navy ROTC program. The Army forgave that when I joined, went through MEPS at the LA station in California. They also, I had to do ADSO because of the debt forgiveness. They also paid for my student loan repayment program. I did additional active duty service, and I got my post 9/11 GI Bill, which I have not touched yet. And by some miraculous miracle, they paid for my master's degree at Carnegie Mellon, master's in cybersecurity. So that brought me to Army Cyber Institute. So I'm still a logistician, but a lot of the career paths I've taken and the multiple deployments overseas involved a lot with logistician systems, computer networks, satellite communications, warehouse operations, maintenance, ammunition, transportation, multimodal, a whole bunch of different types of systems, but they're all based on computer systems and they require security personnel to maintain it, et cetera. My last assignment was at the APS-5 site in Qatar. APS stands for Army Prepositioned Stock. There's about 4 or 5 of them around the world. One is afloat, one is the US, 2 in CENTCOM, that's in the Middle East, and then I believe 1 is in Europe. So I was at that site for 15 months, so there's a lot of logistics and computer maintenance and different types of operations involved just to maintain the equipment at that site.
Yeah, so thanks to the Army Cyber team. And I just want to make clear to everybody that's out there, one of the things that they just mentioned was the opportunity as schools are looking at STEM opportunities or STEM challenges. We have gone through MIT, we've gone through NATIC, and then the Army Cyber Institute as schools are trying to find good projects to get folks interested in STEM and get interested in just solving problems. Those are the type of things that I think the STAR program can bring. So if you are working on something like that, my recruiting NCOs to the STAR program can reach out to assets like the Army Cyber Institute at West Point, NATIC Labs, and others. So it's just one of those things I want to make sure everybody is tracking is out there. And, you know, the key is just reach out. So we wanted to give everybody about 10 minutes to provide questions and answers. So this is the time as we go around the horn. I want to make sure, you know, Bill, Kate, Brandy, Heather, Baron, Laura, Dr. Wood, and Giovanna, if y'all have, just go ahead and raise your hand real quick and we will try and get the right person to answer your questions. This is your time and definitely want to see if you have any questions. So anybody have a question? Hey, Bill, go ahead.
So Ms. Stillman, you commented that if a student needs to take the ASVAB or if a person has to take the ASVAB a second time, the second scores replace the first. Is that even if they do worse the second time, or do you always take the highest score?
That is correct. Regardless of how they score, it's always going to be the only score they can use. So we encourage students not to go rushing into their second or even third test opportunity. In fact, the way the system works is you have to wait 30 days between your first and your second test. Then you have to wait 6 months before your next test. So there's a little bit of a timeline built into that to prevent people from rushing in. But certainly if they've got an area of weakness, whether that be verbal or math or one of the technical sections, we encourage them at that point to really slow things down, focus in on those areas that they need to study in, and get that tutoring however they need to get into it. Because once they take that second test, it's the first test is completely invalid.
Yeah, it's Bill, that was a great question because, you know, like with SAT and ACT, you get to kind of aggregate your top scores. And so people are kind of like wargaming that. And yeah, what we've seen is that there'll be a 6-point improvement between the first test and the second test. If a person does the March success modules, it could even be better. It could even be better. A part of it is just test familiarity. You know, you get used to the modules. It's a very diverse test, the SAS or the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery test is. Yep.
It really is. And
We-
if I could just add one more thing, some kids do better with the paper and pencil format and some do better with the computer format. So that can make a big difference too, with regards to how they perform on the test.
So the age range to the STAR program, how many participates? So Brandy, the age range for us to run the STAR program, we age 17 and older is what we're allowed to kind of engage with and continue to mentor and support. But you know, if other people within the program just want to participate in the physical fitness, they would have to be high school age. They would have to be high school age. We have some kind of medical release waiver type things that we would make sure are good to go, because we wouldn't want somebody to go out there and do physical fitness with us. And you know, we're doing things that are more like CrossFit. Is everybody familiar with CrossFit? Army Functional Fitness is based off of that CrossFit program. So we'll do multi-range functional fitness, and we'll do things that kind of help them get ready for sports and help them get ready for just life. So that has really been our focus in the Students Taking Active Role program, is more like functional fitness, character education, leadership education, and vignette-based things in the STAR program itself. And I'm the principal. Okay, Miss Laura. Yeah, absolutely. We'll go ahead and reach out to you after this, and we can let you know more about who would be running the STAR program locally for you. Any other questions? Those were good questions from Miss Brandy and Miss Laura.
You did say you're going to be sharing the slide deck afterwards.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay,
We're going to send
stuff
this.
Yeah, some of the stuff you all talked about, I'd like to share with our ROTC staff here, just to engage them a little bit more and see how familiar they are with what you talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. That we'll send the slides out to the entire distro list.
Okay.
We had about 85 educators from around the area who had expressed interest and wanted to get a copy of the slides. So Bill, we'll send that right after here. And
Perfect.
if you need, I mean, we can actually get you connected with the specific company commander who works in your region, and they can talk side by side with your JRTC.
We're just hoping to get the doors open again. The weather being nicer, some of the recruiters have been setting up tables in the back where the people go to lunch. So today's probably not a good day, and tomorrow will be even worse. But hopefully after we get back after vacation, we can start opening the doors again and get the folks in here to talk with our students.
It's supposed to snow tomorrow. Like, what?
Yeah, I know.
What is wrong with this place? Like, come on, man. It's April. Stop it.
Yeah,
It's
April in New
marathon
England,
week.
you know?
Come on, you should know better by now. Marathon,
Right.
if it's not snowing.
Hey, I've got tickets to the Red Sox game on Saturday. So as long as it's not rain, I'm good to go. Do you have any other questions?
One more thing
Oh,
for the
go ahead,
group
Jennifer,
as
sorry.
the ASVAB career manager. And I know I speak for my Boston counterpart and my Springfield, Massachusetts counterpart, who just introduced herself in the chat window. We love coming out to schools and making presentations to guidance programs, faculty whoever we can get our program in front of. So don't feel like you have to carry the flag for us. I know it's a lot to kind of take in. Bring us out, invite us to come join your team when you have a chance to, and we'd be more than glad to kind of go over the nuts and the bolts of the program with the decision makers in your school.
And Miss Laura, I do have to caution you though, Jennifer is a graduate of the Naval Academy at Annapolis, class of 96. So from my perspective, she's kind of the enemy, but she's cool. She's pretty cool.
I'm also a Marine, so watch yourself, sir.
Yeah. Does anybody have any other questions? So Brandy, to answer your question about how many, like if one of your homeschooling networks are interested in doing this, you know, reach out to my company commanders and we can talk more, because if there are multiple homeschool organizations that like my sister does homeschooling now with her 4 boys. And so I know how she kind of groups together with people locally. And, you know, we can, if there are several people who are interested in doing the STAR program, I can get my guys to talk with you and put something together to help kind of cater to multiple homeschool networks. That would be very easy to do. And yes, so Ms. Stevenson, I see your question about the STAR program. Is we do it after school? Absolutely. That's kind of like a club in some of the schools, like they'll list it as a club activity. My recruiting NCOs could do it over lunch too. If that's, we can, whatever is convenient for your school, like in Randolph High School in downtown Boston, we do it at lunch most of the time. It's at 12:30 to 1300. And so we do about 30 minutes once every 2 weeks. In Malden High School and Revere High School in Northern Boston, we do it after school. So we can pretty much tailor the STAR program to do it anytime that your school needs it. And my recruiting NCOs will make it happen. It's pretty easy. Oh, and your family's Air Force, huh? So see, we got all the services represented here today. Oh, wow. That is cool. Kate, do you have any questions? Definitely ready to answer anything that you'd have.
I don't think so. I think you guys have hit everything that would apply to our students for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll get these slides out. And so reposting on your school networks, whatever you need to do, let us know. If you need to if we need to do another iteration of this lunch and learn, we will do it again. We can do it in 30 minutes to 45 minutes. That's super easy. If you want to get together a group of your schools or other peers or if you just like Miss Laura, if you want us to talk to your educators, we can do this. It's no problems. It is easy to do. I will give some just closing comments. I mean, we covered a lot of things today. The March Success Program, a free program. It's about ASVAB and SAT improvement. And like my recruiting NCOs all have access to that, and you can check it out. Just contact your local POCs. Jennifer talked a lot about the ASVAB and how great of a program that is. ASVAB testing is down this year because of COVID, but schools are now reaching out to try and figure out April, May, and June tests or kind of get their ASVAB set for next year. So Jennifer is a great point of contact, as is the Springfield team that's on here today. The Career Exploration Program, what a great workshop that is just trying to help kids figure out what they're good at and to help give them some mentorship for future opportunities, not necessarily tied to the Department of Defense, but just to tell them what they're good at from a technical side of things. And then the educators tours, more information to follow there. Like I said, we're working on some virtual options so you can learn more about what the Department of Defense and the Army specifically has to offer in this region. So there's a lot of things covered. I appreciate everybody's time today. If you have anything you need, please reach out. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a great day.
Thank you all. Thank you for your service.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.